Attention passionate Detroit, Lions fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the NFC North and it could change the game. We're talking about a direct impact on Detroit Lions' path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Detroit Lions fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your FRINDS and Detroit LIONS fans. Let's get to the news now, folks. If you've been paying attention to the NFC North lately, you know that there's a lot of buzz swirling around the Detroit Lions, especially as we get closer to the start of the new season. But today, I want to take a step back and look at something that could change the entire landscape of this division. A development that might not seem huge at first glance, but in reality, could be a game changer for Detroit and the entire NFC North. It's about the ripple effects of moves happening around the league, particularly involving teams like the Buffalo Bills, which, believe it or not, can impact what the Lions do or don't do this offseason. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. What do the Bills have to do with the Lions? Well, a lot actually. The NFL is a fluid, interconnected world. Teams are always adjusting, trying to patch up weaknesses, and sometimes those decisions open doors for other teams to capitalize on. For the Detroit Lions, who have been building a solid roster with a focus on both offense and defense, understanding these league-wide shifts is crucial. It helps us anticipate how the Lions might respond to the moves of other teams, especially in terms of roster adjustments, free agent signings, or even trades. Let's start by talking about the upcoming Buffalo Bills training camp, which is just around the corner. As the Bills prepare to hit the field in Rochester, their front office faces a pretty challenging situation. They're already over the salary cap, with Spotrac showing them at around $810, $0 over, which, in NFL terms, is basically a red flag. That means they're going to have to be very creative if they want to add any new players, especially if they see gaps or weaknesses in their roster. And this is where it gets interesting for the Lions, because teams like Buffalo and even division rivals might be forced to make tough choices, which could lead to players becoming available on the trade market or as cut candidates. That's a scenario the Lions could definitely benefit from, especially if they've been eyeing certain veterans or young talents who might be looking for a fresh start. One player that the Bills could potentially target, or more accurately, that could become available due to these roster constraints, is a veteran like Lawson. Now, Lawson is a guy who's been around the league, played a significant role in Dallas in 2024, appearing in 15 games, racking up 5 sacks, and providing some much-needed veteran leadership on the defensive line. At 30 years old, he's experienced, reliable, and if the Bills look to reshuffle their roster because of cap issues, he might be available. And for the Lions, adding a player like Lawson, who, despite the challenges, could still bring a lot of value, might be a smart move. The Lions know how important it is to bolster their defensive front, especially as they aim to keep their rivals in check and push for deep playoff runs. But now, let's shift gears and look at the secondary, an area where the Bills might also be making some moves. The team currently has 6 safeties heading into camp, with the oldest being Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp, both at 27. That's a relatively young group, but it also means there's room for experience and leadership, especially if the Bills decide to shake things up. One name that's been floating around in NFL circles is Jordan Poyer. Now, Poyer is 34 years old, and last season with the Dolphins wasn't his best. Only 98 tackles and 3 passes defended in 16 games. But here's the thing. If Poyer is willing to accept a backup role and retire in Buffalo, he could be a valuable veteran presence, someone who understands what it takes to win and can mentor the younger safeties. For the Lions, who have been focused on building a versatile and experienced secondary, this kind of addition might seem small but can be quite impactful, especially if it brings leadership and stability. And speaking of the secondary, the Bills have already added some rookies like Maxwell Hairston and Dorian Strong, along with their established starters Trey White and Dane Jackson. The cornerback position, as you know, isn't always about flashy signings, but about depth and experience. If the Bills decide to move on from players like Mosley, who has struggled with injuries and limited production lately, It could open a window for the Lions to scout and potentially target such players later in the offseason or during the season if they're cut. Mosley, who tore his ACL twice and suffered a pectoral injury, has been fighting an uphill battle to stay relevant, only managing to play a handful of snaps last year on special teams. Now, why is all of this relevant to the Lions? Because the NFL offseason is a chess game, and every move, every roster adjustment, impacts what teams like Detroit can do. The Lions have been building a core of young talent, mixed with experienced veterans, all aimed at making a deep playoff run and ultimately contending for the Super Bowl. They've got a talented roster led by Jared Goff, who's been playing some of the best football of his career, and a defense that's been steadily improving under the guidance of their coaching staff. But what they need now is to stay sharp, identify opportunities in the market, and perhaps be ready to pounce if a veteran or promising player becomes available due to these league-wide cap issues or roster shakeups. The Lions' front office has shown that they're not afraid to be aggressive when it comes to improving the team. They've already made some key signings, brought in young talent, and fostered a culture of competition and resilience. This offseason, with teams like the Bills potentially looking to make cuts or sign new players, the Lions could benefit from some of these moves, especially if they can identify players who fit their system and their needs. Whether it's beefing up the offensive line, adding depth at linebacker, or improving the secondary, the Lions are in a position to capitalize on the chaos that sometimes unfolds during the NFL offseason. And let's not forget, the NFC North is shaping up to be more competitive than ever. The Vikings, Packers, and Bears are all making moves, trying to improve and find their identity. The Lions, on the other hand, have been steadily climbing, and with their young core, smart coaching, and a clear vision, they're poised to take that next step. But it's not just about adding players. It's about the chemistry, the scheme, and the mindset. Detroit has been fostering a winning culture, and they understand that every offseason move, every draft pick, every signing, and even potential trade has the power to tilt the balance in their favor. Now, for the Lions fans out there, I know you're excited about what's coming. There's this sense of anticipation of potential that this could finally be the year Detroit breaks through and makes a serious playoff run. But you also know that in the NFL, nothing is guaranteed. It's a league of constant adaptation, of smart decisions, and sometimes luck. If the Lions can stay vigilant, keep their roster flexible, and maybe even take advantage of some of the chaos happening around the league, they could set themselves up for a season that exceeds even the most optimistic expectations. So, keep an eye on the roster moves, the signings, and the training camp battles. Every piece of news, every change, could be the next step in their journey toward reclaiming their place among the league's elite. The Lions have the talent, the coaching, and the drive. Now it's about making the right moves at the right time. And I'll be here to keep you updated every step of the way. Remember, the NFL offseason is a dynamic period filled with possibilities, and Detroit is definitely in the thick of it. The future looks bright, and the passion of the Lions fans is what fuels this team every single day. So stay tuned, stay engaged, and get ready for an exciting season ahead. The Lions are on the rise, and the best is yet to come. Trust me, this is just the beginning of what could be a historic chapter for Detroit. Thanks for being with me today, and as always, I'll be back soon with more updates, insights, and all the latest Lions news you need to stay ahead of the game. And now, Detroit Lions fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Detroit Lions. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Detroit Lions news.